Hello everyone and welcome to another Free Training Friday. Today we'll be speaking about organizing your calls and messages in Amicus Attorney. My name is Kaylee White. I'm a marketing coordinator at Amicus Next, and today we have with us Christopher Tober. He's a product trainer for Amicus Attorney. This webinar will be roughly half an hour with 20 minutes of presentation and then 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. So please feel free to input your questions in the questions portion of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will get to those towards the end. Also, this webinar is being recorded, so don't worry about missing anything. We will email you the recording later today or on Monday. So without further ado, I'll let Christopher take it over. Hey, Chris.
Hello, Kaylee. Thank you very much for that introduction, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. As Kaylee mentioned, my name is Chris, and I am a product trainer here at Amicus Next. Today, we're scheduled to do organizing your calls and messages in Amicus Attorney. And as Kaylee said, we certainly do welcome questions, so feel free to throw those into the chat panel in the GoToWebinar control panel. You should be able to find it. It might be minimized on your screen, so you might have to find it in the bottom in your taskbar. But without further ado, let's jump right in. So briefly, this webinar is going to be broken up into two parts because we're dealing with two separate entities. We're dealing with calls, so organizing your calls and logging your phone calls in Amicus, and then after that we will be looking at logging messages and sending those messages off to other firm members, and of course being able to review them in Amicus as well. So I'm going to bring up Amicus. You should see it in your on your screen rather. Today we're working in Bobby Donnell's training office, and Bobby is our fictional lawyer that we use for our training. And first we should probably start off with talking about why it's important to organize your calls and messages. If your firm is like 99% of other firms that I deal with, communicating with your clients and pulling up records of those communications with them is one of the largest perhaps even the largest challenge, specifically, of course, with phone messages and phone calls, right? Whereas in emails, you can always easily find that and refer back to a previous email that you sent. Phone calls are a little bit more difficult to track, but we do carry those features in Amicus, and in fact, they're one of the most often overlooked features in Amicus. In my opinion, I find that when I'm doing training with new firm members and people that have been using our product for a very long time, they're oftentimes shocked by how easy it is to record a phone call in Amicus, right? And of course, they're quick to see the benefits of doing that. That's what we're here today to learn. So first things first, let's go ahead and log a phone call in Amicus Attorney. Now, you can log a phone call in Amicus Attorney from a number of places. You can do it really from anywhere in Amicus by clicking File, New, oops, click the wrong button there, File, New, and then you have Phone Call. You can also hit Control-Shift-P. Not really easy to do with one hand, unfortunately, but yeah, that is one option. You can also access or create a new phone call record by clicking on the right-hand or the Amicus pumpkin rather, located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We call it the pumpkin because it's round and orange. I do know that the newer version of Amicus that's coming out very soon is doing away with the round pumpkin. The feature is still there, but we won't be calling it the pumpkin for much longer. But from the pumpkin, we can select New, and then we can go ahead and log a phone call from here as well. Lots of places, as I said, to do it. You can also, if you have your floating tap toolbars engaged, you can also log a phone call or start recording a new phone call right from there as well. I'm going to go ahead and hide the floating toolbar just for today's training. We only have one screen, so we don't want to clutter it up. Another place to log a phone call is from within a file or a contact, and indeed that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go into our People module and find Janet Bailey here. If I right-click on Janet, I can also start logging a new phone call for her, or if I happen to have Janet's profile open right from her business card, and those of you that use Amicus, of course, will know that the business card for all of the clients is on the files as well in Amicus. Right from there, I can start or create a phone call record for this contact, and that's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and click that. right? And the benefit of actually starting a phone call from a contact or a business card is that Amicus will make a number of assumptions for you. It'll assume that because I clicked on the phone call icon from Janet's contact that I am calling her. If I had just from anywhere in Amicus just created a new phone call, Amicus can't really guess who I'm speaking with on the phone, so it would ask me who I'm speaking with. The benefit, as I said, of clicking the icon on Janet's contact is that Amicus assumes, of course, that I'm calling Janet Bailey. I can also receive a call from her as well. You'll also notice, of course, my name is in there because I started this phone call record. If other firm members happen to be on the call as well, I could go ahead and add them at this point as well. You'll also notice that Amicus has put in the file for this client. Janet only has one file, so Amicus automatically puts that in. If the client or contact rather that you're speaking with does not have a file, of course that would be blank. If the contact had multiple files with your firm, you would be asked to specify which file or files that you are conversing with Janet in regards to. And then underneath you can see we have the date, the time, and there is a timer keeping tabs of how long we're spending on the phone with Janet. You'll also notice that we have Janet's business line put in there. Amicus will put in the primary telephone number for your contact. You can, of course, if need be, change that to a different phone number. Now, underneath here, we have our main note, or our notes section. Amicus is not listening in on the call, and of course, that means that Amicus is not going to be transcribing the phone conversation for you. We're not quite at that point yet, although I imagine that would be a pretty nifty feature to have down the road. So for the time being, you will still have to log your notes about the phone call. You can make these as broad or as general as you wish. Right. And right away, one of the benefits of logging your phone calls with your clients is that, let's say that Janet starts complaining that I was supposed to call her last week and I never actually did. One of the benefits of logging your phone calls is that you have access to the call history. And if I click on the call history, I can see, no, actually, Janet, I left you a voicemail on November 17th and you have not yet called me back. Right? And if I open up any of these records, right, I get the full record from that phone call. In this case, it was just a voicemail, so it wasn't a terribly long conversation. But we can see how long we spent on the phone, what time it took place, and any of the notes that I've logged on that phone call. Right? So obviously, we do want to include as much important detail in these notes, right? But as I said, you're really kind of free to make these as broad or as specific as you wish. Now, I go back to the phone conversation at hand, and we wrap things up by saying, okay, Janet, I'm going to be calling you. We'll call back next week to confirm. Now, Janet's already accused me once of not calling her as promised, so I certainly want to ensure that I am going to be following up with her next week as promised. And right from the phone call details window, we can actually schedule a follow-up. If I click on follow-up, again, Amicus tries to be as helpful as it can. It's put in a kind of descriptive title that I can just leave as is, or I can add information to if I wish. Right? Amicus has made this a to-do. Right? I'm calling Janet back next week. I haven't given her a firm date and time when I'm calling her, so I'm going to leave this as a to-do. If, however, I had told Janet that I was going to be calling her next Monday at 3 o'clock, this would, of course, have to be an appointment, but Amicus will always default to to-do. It's put in today's date. Now I can leave today's date in, or I can calendar this forward to next Monday. I don't need this to-do to appear in my list today, right? Because I'm not going to be calling her until Monday at the earliest. And I can also put in a deadline if I wish, right? Those are purely optional, of course. You don't necessarily have to do so. It's put in the file, and it's put in or assigned this to-do to me. And that's, of course, because I created this to-do. But of course, I could delegate that to somebody else. Let's say I'm tired of dealing with Janet. I'm going to make poor Shirley Schmidt deal with Janet from here on out. In this case, I'm going to leave it to myself. And then, of course, the contact here. Click OK, and a to-do has now been added to my list starting next Monday, right, with a deadline set. That means that this to-do will progressively rise up in my list of to-dos as we approach the deadline, and on the day of the deadline, it'll turn this bright red color, and of course, if we miss the to-do, it'll turn that purple color to indicate that we've missed the deadline. Now you'll notice, of course, that the timer is still going, right? Amicus is keeping track of how long we spend on the phone with the client, and this timer will only stop if we click OK, or of course if we click cancel, or if we click do time entry. Right? And of course for those firms, and many firms do, of course, that do charge for time they spend on the phone with their clients, right? This is an invaluable tool right from here. Right? I don't have to do anything, right? Amicus has put in the file. Right? There's Janet's file there. It's put in the activity description for me, so I didn't need to put anything in there. I can add information or make it maybe a little bit more concise. It's got the default billing behavior, which is bill, because Janet's file, the Bailey Kipling file, is a billable file, and it's put in a time for me. Now, just as a quick aside, this doesn't necessarily really have anything to do with organizing phone calls, but you'll notice that 0.5 is set as the time, whereas we only actually spent 4 minutes and 58 seconds with Janet. And that is because my minimum bill capture time is half an hour. So Amicus will round up to the half hour if, of course, we don't speak for the full half hour. Right? But I'm free to, if I need to, right, I can go ahead and say, no, you know what, we only spent, let's say, a tenth of an hour, so 6 minutes. Right, so that's the fee is automatically done for us. Right, and then from here I can click OK to create an unposted time entry, or click Post to send it off to the either Amicus billing side of the application or off to whatever third-party accounting system that you are linked with. Now, the benefit, of course, of logging our phone calls with the clients is that everyone's on the same page. And by that, I mean all of your colleagues will have access to those phone call records. If I go to Communications under the Contact, right, here are all of the phone calls that we had with Janet. I clicked Cancel, so that phone call that we just had with her is not, of course, going to appear in this list, but I can see all of my calls. And then if I go to All Communications, I can see all calls and messages. I can see if anybody else has had any phone calls with Janet. This is all available here, right, under Communications, All Calls and Messages, and of course, everyone that has access to Janet's contact will have access to these records. And as I said, everyone will be on the same page. Phone call records are also important. If we go to a file, and let's pull up Janet's file here, and under Janet's file, we also have Communications, and we also have All Calls and Messages. Now, many of these phone calls are with Janet, so that's pretty much the same list that we saw just a few moments ago. However, you can see we have a couple of calls from other people that have roles on this file. Right, here's Douglas Brackman. Douglas is the opposing counsel on this file, and here's a phone call that we received from Douglas regarding the Bailey Kipling file. Right? Again, everyone that has access to this area or to this file will be able to see these records. Messages are pretty similar. Of course, by messages we mean that someone calls and they want to speak with somebody who is not available. Again, you can engage messages from anywhere, or not anywhere, but plenty of places in Amicus. If I go to File, New, Message, Control-Shift-M, I can also use the Amicus pumpkin in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. But again, I can also right-click on items within Amicus. We can't do it for files. My apologies. You can only do it for people. You can't really take a message for a person. Sorry, for a file rather. So on in the people module, right, we can go ahead and we can log a phone call. It's a little bit different. What happens is we can log a phone call, and right from the phone call we can actually click message. So if this starts off as a phone call but really turns into taking a message for somebody else, one of my colleagues in the firm, I'll go ahead and change it to a message. Now again, Amicus has tried to be as helpful as can be. It knows who we're talking to on the phone, so it's already put Janet Bailey in there. It's already put Janet's file, and again, there's her primary phone number for me. It's also put in a message. Right. I can either get rid of this or add to this. I'll just get rid of it and put in a strongly worded message. Phone her back. I can also make this an urgent message, and all this will do, it'll just make the message appear in red everywhere in Amicus to kind of denote its urgent status. I can also put in other or tick other boxes here to identify statuses. All I need to do really is say, who is this phone message for? Click 2, right? My work group will come up. So my work group is comprised of myself, Jack, as well as Shirley. Right? But I can bring up all of the people in the firm if need be. In this case, I'm going to, and this is probably not something you would generally do, I'm going to send the message to myself so that we can see it come in. Click OK, and then click Send. You probably didn't hear that. There was a little ringing noise. Longtime users of Amicus will undoubtedly be familiar with it. In the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, you can see that I have a new message. If I happened to be logged out of Amicus when I received this message, I would actually get the message when I log into Amicus. So it's not that if you're logged out of Amicus, you're not going to get your phone messages. When you log into Amicus, you'll hear that same ringing sound unless you've turned off that setting in your preferences, and you'll be able to view it. You can view a message by going directly to your communications module or simply by clicking on the little icon that appears in your Windows system tray. If I click on that, Amicus will jump right to the communications module, and it will set the filters to only show my messages. So only messages currently showing, right? And these are my current messages. Here's that message from Janet, really from myself regarding Janet. Right, and I can do everything that I need to do. I can, of course, give Janet a call back simply by clicking on the phone icon right from the messages, and that will create a new phone call record to log this call with Janet. So anywhere in Amicus where you see the little phone icon, you can click on that to start logging a new phone call. And again, these phone messages are going to be available on either a file or a contact, depending on how you log the phone call or phone message. Right? Everyone will have access to it. You'll notice that the phone message that we received just a few moments ago has disappeared. And that's because Amicus assumes that if you open up a phone message and click the phone call icon, right, that you are, of course, returning that phone message, so it is no longer an outstanding phone message. It will be flagged as done or call was returned. Right? By no means is the phone message deleted. If I go back to the file and bring up the Bailey-Kipling file and then go to communications, right, there is that phone message that I received and have now been marked as done because, again, Amicus assumes that because I clicked to return the call that I have now fulfilled my obligation to Janet. You could as well schedule follow-ups. Right? So if you don't have time to call Janet back right at this moment, right, you can always go ahead and schedule a follow-up to remind you that you should be calling Janet. And again, we can forward this back to next week if it's Friday right now. I don't have time to deal with Janet, nor do I really want to. Right? I can go ahead and schedule this for next week. And of course, given that I don't want to deal with Janet anymore, I could go ahead and delegate this to someone else. All right, and that wraps up our webinar for today, Organizing Your Calls and Messages in Amicus Attorney. Before we move on to questions, and I'm looking forward to answering some of those, I would like to do a quick poll. I'm just going to bring that up here. And we have our first question for today: should we move Free Training Friday to another weekday? So you should see that poll on your screen. You can go ahead and answer if you wish. Right, we certainly do value your input, and we would love to know how you feel. Right? As I said, that should be on your screen in a moment. We have a couple of votes coming in. Most of those are in favor of keeping things on for Friday. Looks like a popular day. All right, so I'll just give you one more moment if you wanted to quickly vote. And we do have a second poll. And that second poll is, would you like more information about Amicus Private Cloud, or APC? For those of you that are maybe not familiar with APC, there is a handout also available from your GoToWebinar panel. It's a PDF document. You can go ahead and download that to find out more information. APC is a private cloud, which means that all of your information is stored in a secure cloud environment. You can take your Amicus anywhere on the road, which means that from anywhere in the world, you can log into APC and therefore have access to Amicus, and you'll have access to all of your files and your contacts and whatnot. So a really powerful and handy feature. Right. And for those of you that are saying yes to the poll, we'll certainly be in touch with more information, or as I said, you can go ahead and download that PDF in the handouts portion of the GoToWebinar panel. All right, so with the polls out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll so that we can still, or we'll be able to see my screen. Just in case we have any questions that I can answer right away. So we have a couple of questions. I'll rattle them off as they come in. By all means, feel free to throw those into the question panel on your GoToWebinar control panel. The first question from Janine, how does email notification work for phone messages? So Janine probably saw that when we were sending our, actually, sorry, we have to create a new one here. We'll create a new phone message. When we create a new phone message, we have two options, and I'll just send this to myself real quick from Janet. We have two options down here. Right. We can send, which is what I did earlier, and that was basically just to send off a notification through Amicus, so to the firm member within Amicus. We also have the option to send and email. This is a really handy feature if that particular colleague is not in the office at the moment, and this is a really important phone message. If I click send an email, right, it's still going to be sent through Amicus, but then Amicus will also auto-generate this email, and it will be set to whatever the default or primary email address for that firm member is. So we have the email put in, we have subject line put in, and we have the body of the email, and then we just go ahead and click send, and that'll be sent off to this colleague. It's a great question. All right, and next question from Scott, can I log phone calls in Amicus Online? Yes, absolutely. Pretty much the same, all of the functionality that we saw today in Amicus Attorney is available in Amicus Online. So you certainly would be able to do that. We always, of course, encourage you to attend webinars that are specific to Amicus Online, or if you don't want to wait for that, you can always give us a call and schedule some training for your firm. All right, I don't see any other questions that have come in. I'll just leave the floor open for a few more moments. Like I said, please feel free to put those right into the panel, and we can certainly address those. Alternatively, of course, you always have the option to book training for your firm. Right, so if you head on over to our website, you can actually schedule training for Amicus Attorney. Right, you can schedule either 1 hour or 2 hour training sessions, and you can see we have a number of examples of typical trainings that we would do in those 1 hour or 2 hour sessions. You are, of course, free to create what are called custom trainings, which basically means that you're interested in looking at very specific areas within the application. We always welcome those types of trainings. So really for anything with regards to Amicus, of course, we would be more than happy to schedule some training with you. This is all self-service, so you can go over to our website and then go ahead and book either a 1 hour or 2 hour training session. All right, so Kaylee, I'll pass things back to you. And if there are any questions that come in the meantime while you're speaking, I'll be certainly happy to address those as well.
Alrighty, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Another great Amicus Attorney Free Training Friday. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much for participating, answering our polls. We want to make these the best trainings possible, so getting your feedback is always very helpful. And be on the lookout for an email with the recording of today's session. So thank you so much, Christopher, and everybody have a wonderful weekend.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
All righty, bye-bye.